Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by my good friend, the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, and the sexiest voice in triathlon, James Bale. Jimbo, how you going, mate?
I'm well, mate. I'm well. Life is good at the moment. You know, we're all just cracking on, and things are things are opening up.
You
Stuff's
did it
happening.
again. You did
We
it
can.
again. You've gone from like a 1 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10 very quickly. I think you caught yourself in the act and you're like, oh, that's right. We're actually recording a podcast. I better pump it
I
up a
had
little bit.
I had someone ask me this morning why I was called the sexy shepherdess, and the story behind it I don't think impressed them or entertained them quite as much as they were hoping there would be a story behind it. But
What could the story be? I once, in a previous life before I was a podcaster, I love sheep. So I
I think
decided
they were
to
hoping for
be.
some sort of role play type scenario that I was secretly into. You
You
know,
dressed as Little Bo Peep. That's your weird kink, is you love to dress up as a little Bo Peep with your weird stick with the bend on the end and your basket, and off you go
and
talking
my
about sheep.
flock and my flock. How are you, mate? You all right?
Good, mate. As you'll know, it's a long day. I think we're up at 4:30 this morning for myself for a meeting, and it's, what are we talking, 6 p.m. now? So it's been a long day, but that's how we love it.
Yeah, I've had 12 hours sleep since then, so I'm feeling fresh as a daisy.
We also recorded part of this episode last night, plus our bonus episode with Chris yesterday. It's always good to catch up with Macca. You guys will hear it later in the episode, talking all about Gustav racing Jan Frodeno later this month in California. Plus, then we go into our bonus episode where we did basically big Super League recap, 70.3 recap, and then just general triathlon chat like we always do with Chris, which is always a lot of fun. But I was knackered after it. I think that whole process with Chris was like 2.5 hours last night. I remember I finished, I was like, oh my God, I'm absolutely exhausted. But speaking of Chris, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by the aforementioned four-time world champion Chris McCormack. James, you have been part of MX for bloody ages. What's something that you like about MX Endurance?
I like seeing what all the members are up to, mate. As I logged on to the group yesterday and saw that one of our members, I think it was Matthew Spooner, had done a 55-kilometer ultra marathon in 7 hours something, and all that sort of thing is very inspirational because I'm off this weekend to do a 55-kilometer ultra marathon myself in
In 7
probably
hours?
in a slower time than that. It's going to be a big day out for me. But yeah, it's nice to see people out doing things again, finally, you know, and getting out in it. Get the fuck out in it.
We opened up the applications for our 2022 race team today, our ambassador program, and it's always a real. I like this time of year because you see that the members get excited about. They know we're going to have a bunch of new members come and join. So I really enjoy this time of year every year. So if anybody is listening, you're interested, head to our website. I'll put it in the show notes this week too, or in the comments if you're on YouTube. And you can find information about joining the race team. We're literally trying to make it as easy for people to be part of it, the ambassador program this year as possible. We're coming up with a whole different way of people contributing. So put in an application, and I'm
And
sure
there's
we'll
so
find
much
something for
happening
you
in
to
the
do.
background, isn't there? You know, so much news to come. Sponsors getting on board, people,
Yeah.
partners, etc. So yeah, get involved. Check it out.
Plus all the connections to the cool stuff we're doing with Mana, like sub 7, sub 8, Super League, all those things. Like it's really cool how well connected we are. And we're bringing on a lot of the athletes we represent. We're bringing into the community now. Might have some new ones pretty soon, which is exciting. But no, it's good.
Yeah, yeah.
So, James, we've just talked about a good thing. We're going to go straight into a bad thing, and it's sort of a bit of follow up to what we spoke about a few weeks ago. And it's only a brief little thing I want to talk about. I got this little snippet from Sarah Wasner-Flynn at triathlete.com. For anybody playing along at home, Sarah does a really good weekly wrap up of the main, like really good little pieces of news. So if you want to just quickly know what's going on, check out Sarah's article. I check it every week before we do the show. And that's a Russian triathlete who competed in Tokyo now is banned for doping. After being indefinitely suspended from competition in July, Russian triathlete Igor Polyansky is now banned from the sport for 3 years due to violations of anti-doping regulations, the press office of the Russian anti-doping agency Razada said in a statement on Thursday. The 31-year-old who competed in both mixed team relay and men's individual triathlon races at the Tokyo Games tested positive for genetically engineered EPO during an out-of-competition test on July 21st. Polyansky's ban will remain in effect until August 9th, 2024.
Yeah, you can fuck right off, mate. Off he goes, banned. caught using erythropoietin, which I noticed you bailed out of the
Yes,
pronunciation
I
on.
did.
And this is it's a sad story, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing that people get caught when they are doing this sort of thing and they've crossed that line. So off he goes, and hopefully, maybe we won't see him again. I don't know. What'll really be? It's a 3-year ban. He'll be 34 when he comes back. Does he want to spend that 3 years out of competition, training his ass off so he can come back at a peak form? Is he capable of competing at a high level without the erythropoietin in his system? Who knows? It's a legacy and a career ruined. Off he
I
goes.
do I do really like the fact that I'm pretty sure his ban will mean he'll miss the Olympics in 2024 as well. Like I like that that's an obvious consequence. An athlete who shall remain nameless. I'm not going to name that athlete, but I was watching a race that Polyansky was in, and I think they made a comment of uses drugs, comes out of the water in this position. How shit are you? Like
Yeah.
it's pretty fascinating for me now that we have this, I guess, inside access to a lot of pros to hear their reaction. Um, yeah, it doesn't sound like anybody was really surprised by this, but again, yeah, you're not really setting the world on fire and you're confessed drugger or confirmed drug cheat. Good luck to you, mate.
Yeah, well, you've got to go and find something else to do with his life now, isn't he? And look himself in the mirror every day. I'm quite sure that's not a problem. If you've already crossed that line, he's been looking himself in the mirror for a long time. But the rest of us know about it now.
What do you reckon about Rosada? That'd be a busy organization over there, maybe.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. There's a big rabbit hole we could go down there, mate. In
Yeah, I
terms
know.
of toothless responses to doping, but
Well,
we'll
we
see.
will not. We'll move
Yeah,
on. On to something a bit more positive and impressive. I got this from Triathlon today from Romy Schuneveld. And that's 2 weeks after winning 70.3 World Championships and a week after Super League Triathlon Malibu. Lucy Charles ran the London Marathon. Now, this news came out that she was doing it. I'm not joking. What, hours after we finished recording the episode last week, and I was like, "Fuck's sake!" Like
yeah.
always,
There's a genuine
always.
curse on this podcast when it comes to news. That I think I don't know whether Thursday's a fucking day that people wait for to
It
release
must
stuff,
be.
because we record on a Thursday morning and then Thursday afternoon it's like Jesus Christ.
I
But
reckon they've got some. They've got. We've got cameras now. They watch us and they hit that button of press release as soon as we're finished. Because there's a bunch of stuff that we're going to talk about that also happened literally straight after we recorded last week. So obviously she's done it. So we're going to talk about her performance rather than the fact that she's doing it. But she just 2 hours 47 58 minutes seconds is how long it took Lucy Charles to run an impressive marathon in London. Yesterday or the day before the race, Lucy mentioned that she didn't have the prettiest track record when it comes to the London Marathon after a DNS due to injuries both in 2016 and 2017 and a DNF in 2019. Charles Barclay now finally finished the event, and most of all, she put together an incredibly strong race. She said on Instagram, "Finally managed it. London Marathon 2021. Completed it, mate. Went out fast, standard procedure. Lost my shoe at mile 8. Had a toilet stop at Mud Chute. Smiled for 26.2 miles and ran 2:47.53. Now time for some recovery and rest." And her husband, Reese Barclay, also ran the marathon in 2 hours 43.06 seconds. What cannot she do?
yeah, good work, Lucy. Well done. I mean, not long after winning the 70.3 World Championships, go out and smash out a marathon in a very, very solid time. How does someone lose their shoe when they're running? That's
I was
that's not
thinking that
something that's
myself.
ever happened or even come close to happening to me. I'm not on the edge of losing my shoe all the time. That's
Hey, what's your namesake? Who's your namesake? What's his name?
how do you mean?
We know who you're named after, the sexy shepherdess.
Oh
I
yeah,
believe the
yeah.
sexy shepherdess lost his shoe at Super League Singapore and
Oh
ended up
yeah,
doing the run barefoot. So
yeah. He did.
it
Yeah.
maybe is a problem.
I
Yeah, I have
mean,
no
yeah.
idea. Maybe
I think it's probably easier to do in these new super shoes like the Nike Vaporfly, because they've got a slightly lower heel. Maybe it's easier to do that. Harder to tie. I don't know. But anyway, good work, Lucy.
speaking of just on the shoe thing, because I watched, I think it was a Joe Skipper video this week on YouTube. Joe's done an end of season wrap up, and there was some footage of him racing or there was some footage of the race from Chattanooga, and there was footage of Cody Beals running, and Cody's obviously using the fast Nike super shoe. But looking at the way Cody's feet were landing, I don't know if you saw this, James. It was a slow motion shot, and Cody Beals was running, I think, with Ben Hoffman. And it looks like Cody Beals' feet were almost like slipping out of the sole. It was really it's almost like he was half his foot wasn't even landing on the sole of the shoe. And I thought, Christ, that's a rolled ankle waiting to happen. I don't know. Have you ever seen that before?
Yeah, the was probably in the Alpha Fly or the Vaporfly, wasn't he? I race in the Vaporfly, and they don't have a huge amount of ankle support. If you look at yourself running in slow motion in those shoes, your ankles roll quite considerably. It's part of what propels them forward. They haven't got that stability that a stability shoe might come with, because they're extremely light and they've got the carbon plate in them and they've got all the cushioning around them. So it's kind of, you take that, and when it took me a long time to adapt to those shoes, I do a huge amount of calf raises and stuff like that now, because you can feel your ankles and your Achilles and your calves when you run in those shoes. They force you to run in a certain way
Yeah.
that kind of pushes you towards that danger.
Again, and this is I spoke about the fact we speak to a lot more pro athletes these days, and that's I guess a narrative that I'm also starting to hear from a lot of them, is that there's this narrative that a lot of them are going, these shoes are starting to feel like maybe an Achilles injury waiting to happen. So I mean, myself, I got some plate shoes from Mizuno, and I've noticed, yeah, my heels like my Achilles have been not, I'm not an injury, but I've not experienced that sort of thing before, and I'm like, yeah, these are probably just a race day shoe, not too much more than that, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
but if you're going to save them for race day shoe, then you've got to make sure your calves and
yeah, I mean, I do
everything's
that anyway.
ready for that. Yeah, exactly. Because I did a half marathon a couple of weeks ago, and I think I managed to run in them properly until about 10 miles, and then I sort of fell back on my heels a little bit because everything started to get a little bit fatigued. But
Yep.
yeah, you've got to have the strength and the practice in them.
Well, let's go back to talking about Lucy Charles running the marathon, because we went on a complete tangent just then. But mate, what can't she do? 70.3 world champion, goes to Super League, has a great performance there, and then goes and runs a 2:47 marathon. Not a bad couple of weeks, hey?
No, not a bad couple of weeks. And off the back of that, she's announced that Paris is going to be her focus after the double Ironman World Championships of next year. So she's going to be focusing on trying to qualify for Paris. And if she's focusing on trying to qualify for Paris, then obviously the assumption would be that she believes she can medal, perhaps even win the short course Olympic distance race in Paris. So, what can't she do? I think I mentioned in a pre-recorded interview we got with Macca that next year and the next 3 years for her could be a big one. It could be a career-defining, legend-making period of time for Lucy Charles Barkley.
It's so funny when you talk about Lucy, because I think we've both said previously, and we talked about this recently, we felt like she was just going to miss out by being in that era, sort of wedged between Daniela and then the ITU girls like Katie and Flora and those people who would come through, and sort of Lucy might just miss out. That is not the case anymore. Lucy Charles, the last 12 months, has just, again, I am so impressed by the progress she's made this year. And obviously working with Dan Lorang now, it's, man, I'm so excited to see what she does. Like anything Lucy wants to do now, I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, let's see it happen. Like she could say, as I said, she could take a bobsledding or something. I'm like, let's go, let's see how she does this. I can't wait to see it. So
Yeah,
it's very impressive running.
those two commentators on the MX Endurance podcast that said she might be in the Miss Generation were a bit wrong on that one, mate.
We always say we're happy to be proven wrong, mate. We're not hiding our heads in the sand about that one. But look, let's talk about Super League Triathlon. We touched on it just before, the fact that Lucy was there, did a great job. But we've got some great information, and it shows how good Super League's been for professional racing. That's a huge paydays for 2021 Super League competitors. I got this article from Kevin McKinnon at Triathlon Magazine Canada. He says it sure was a worthwhile month of racing for the big winners from last month's Super League Triathlon Championship Series. For the athletes competing, Super League picked up all the costs for travel, accommodation, food, physio, mechanic, and marketing support. For the athletes, this is a big deal, as it means they get to pocket the prize money without having to use it to pay for their expenses. 4 of the 5 biggest earners from the series were all members of Great Britain's Olympic mixed team relay gold medal winning team. Georgia Taylor Brown with $140,000, Jess Lemont $136,000 topped the women's stand-in, while Alex Yee with $120,000 topped the men's money earners, with Jonathan Brownlee earning $73,000, finishing third behind Hayden Wild with $104,500. Georgia
God,
Taylor
it's
Brown.
good to see a sporting event where a woman is earning more than the top
Scared the
finishing
shit
man,
out of me
isn't it?
just
Eh?
then. You scared the shit out of me.
I love it. I love the. I mean, the opportunity for both male and men and women in this to earn equal is there. It's not like the women are being paid more than the men, but it's really refreshing to see an outcome where the top women's finisher has earned more than the top men's male finisher. I love that. That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, it's great. Taylor Brown earned the most money in the series by finishing second in all 4 races, winning the overall championship title, winning the run course jersey, and finishing second in the SLT team stand-ins. So in the prizes, you had Georgia Taylor Brown 140,000, Jess Lim 136,000, Katie Zafiras 52,500, Vicky Holland 43,500, Beth Potter 42,000, Victoria Lopez 35,000, Taylor Spivey 28,500, Cassandra Beaugrand 26,500, all the way down to Valerie Bartholomew in 2,500 US dollars.
I'm so
As
pleased you
for
stopped. I thought you were going to go through all of them. I was like, fucking hell, there's loads of them here, mate.
there's too many, mate. I know.
Stop reading names and numbers.
Don't worry. I think, to be honest, I was committed to doing the whole thing, and then I sort of scrolled and went, "No, I'm not doing that. Just jump to the bottom." Breakdown for the men's prizes: Alex Yee 120,000, Hayden Wild 104,500, Jonathan Brownlee 73,000, Vincent Louis 61,000, Vasco Valasa 47,000, Seth Ryder $41,500, all the way down to Yannick Schofler in $2,500.
It's a
Jimbo.
healthy payday for those athletes, and so it should be for a professional sport like triathlon, where these are the top performers in the world. We can both agree that professional sports people should earn more than that, but it is a very healthy payday and very, as I said before, very refreshing to see the top women's finisher earning more than the top men's finisher, because as a comparison to that, I think it's worth mentioning that we had the first women's Paris-Roubaix this weekend gone. Now, as the world's second biggest cycling fan, you know that Paris-Roubaix is my favorite race of the year. And this weekend I cared about nothing other than the cycling that was on the TV, and I got to watch
myself as well, obviously.
Yeah, obviously you were down
obviously.
in it. I got to watch 2 Paris-Roubaix this weekend because we had the first women's Paris-Roubaix, 125 years too late, but it was there. It was a reduced distance from the men's, but Lizzie Deignan was the winner from a solo breakaway on the first section of cobbles. She crossed the line with bloodied handlebars and bloodied hands because of all the bouncing up and down on those cobbles, and the devastation that the Paris-Roubaix race brings to a peloton. Couple that with wet weather and mud, it makes it very slippery and very hard. So well done, Lizzie, on winning that. And then on the Sunday, we had Sonny Colbrelli, the men's winner, who won a 3-up sprint in the velodrome. Now, I mentioned this after the prize money chat about Super League, because the €1,535 prize for winning Paris-Roubaix Femmes, which Lizzie Deignan won, sits in line with the UCI minimum requirement for women's World Tour races. The €30,000 the rider on the men's side is 50% above the already considerable larger minimum payout amount. The overall purse paid across the top 20 riders for the men is €91,000, and for the women it is €7,005. So I wanted to make I wanted to make the point that the race existing and the race happening is one thing. For the optics, well done, you've got a race on TV and the women have got a race, but the detail behind it is really, really critical. Now, they've got to make the distances the same. They've got to give the women a full day of coverage rather than just the last section of 30 odd kilometers. They've got to sort the prize money out. Making the race exist is the first step, but the real substance will come when equality is reached, because that is a ridiculous discrepancy in prize money. And then and Lizzie Deignan's team, Trek Segafredo, to give them credit, they made up the difference so that she took home the same as the men's winner. But they shouldn't have to do that. That's not the answer. That's like, that's just a sticking plaster. The UCI,
it's enabling, mate.
Yeah, it is, and the UCI will fall back on, but it's the rules that the women can't race the same distance as the men, and we've got limits on prize. Well,
who writes
the rules? Yeah,
who writes the rules?
Yeah, Jesus Christ. So yeah, sort it out.
Yeah, it's good. It's good as well. I think a lot of the times in the sport of triathlon, we forget how progressive and the sport has been. Like, this stuff, can you imagine? Like, this is, I think the reason I'm so shocked by this is because we've just spoken about Georgia Taylor Brown. win all that money. And we've always seen the women do the same as the men, same money, same distance, normally the same day. But which again, I don't necessarily think is a step down. But yeah, it does throw into context. I think we had an article last year on the podcast. I think it was talking about there is a perfectly gender equal sport, and it is triathlon. So again, shows that we are doing a lot of things right over here in this little bubble of the world of triathlon.
Yeah, I mean, we've two blokes on a podcast. There will always be issues within every sport, and it's always good to listen to the women in our sport to ask them where the problems lie. 'Cause it's easy for us to sit here and say, "Oh, yeah, it's gender equal," and it is. It's a progressive sport, same distances, same prize money, same day, same coverage. Excellent. But there's always a conversation to be had. But when you compare it to what pro cycling is and how it treats the female stars of its sport, nah, man, they've got work to do. They've got work to do if they want to maintain the respect of the audience that watches it.
I saw that meme you sent me about the white shoes. That made me have a good laugh. So I appreciated that. Again, I saw it live, watching it so closely. I just live and
Yeah,
breathe
of course.
cycling.
Yeah.
Next piece of news, James. We're going to get back to something that obviously I don't know quite as well as I know cycling, but I'm excited to talk about it. Is Clash of the Titans set for Daytona in December. John Levinson at Try 24/7 with a brilliant pun there. Well done. I appreciate this. Two very impressive pro fields have been announced to race in Clash Daytona on December 4th, 2021. The inaugural in-name event looks set to welcome one of the strongest fields of the season to the World Center of Racing at the Daytona International Speedway. While there is no PTO link up for 2021, the event will be offering a sizable $100,000 prize purse along with live coverage. With the benefit of on-site NASCAR broadcast infrastructure, and if you're in the UK, Europe, great timing, this should be strong. The new Ironman 70.3 World Champion Lucy Charles Barclay will return to the venue where she finished second in 2019, and she'll have an exceptional lineup of athletes facing her. From that race in St. George, Ginny Metzler, who came second, Kat Matthews, who came fourth, Emma Pallant Brown, who came fifth, Sky Monch, who came sixth, and Jackie Herrinth, who came seventh, are also listed, meaning that only Taylor Knibb, who came third, will be absent from the top seven. It doesn't stop there, however, because there are some significant additions with Annie Haug, the 2019 Ironman World Champion. And again, I need to apologize. Last week, I called Daniela the Ironman World Champion. Yes, I got the messages. I know I fucked up. Thank you. Yes, I was aware after we finished recording. Thank you. Yes. Challenge Roth winner, Laura Phillip, dominant winner of this year's, and Challenge Roth winner was Annie Haug. I'm not making that mistake again. I caught myself. And Laura Phillip. I nearly fucked it up again. Dominant winner this year of both Ironman Finland and Ironman Austria will both join. They are currently PTO World ranked 5th and 3rd respectively and have proven form at the venue, having finished 2nd Annie and 3rd Laura at the PTO Championship in 2020. Who won that 2020 race? Canada's Paula Finlay, and yes, she will also be back to try and earn a 3rd consecutive Daytona win. Jimbo, you've got access to that the doc in front of you. You can see that list of names. Who else on that list is jumping out at you and you're excited to see race?
I want to see Sky Monch turn up and have a good old go. Jodie Stimpson is there, who, didn't do too badly in Daytona last time round, did she?
Miami.
Oh yeah, sorry, she won.
You're gonna get people emailing us.
She didn't do too badly the last time they raced on a speedway, did she?
No.
And Kat Matthews is there. Ellie Salthouse, who is a bit of a powerhouse at the moment. Like to see Lucy Hall race because she'll be first out the water and she can always see what she can do from the front. Yeah, she will be. Yeah,
with Lucy Charles Barclay there.
Well, she'll be there or thereabouts with Lucy Charles Barclay. I think there's every chance they'll two up.
Where's Holly Lawrence? Is she on this list? What's Holly Lawrence doing?
Holly Lawrence is not on this list currently.
I want to see Holly Lawrence race again. Come on, Holly. Come on, get out there. Do you want to go through the men's, mate? Do you want to take over the men's for me?
Yeah, I'm on it. Olympic champion Christian Blumenfeld, double world triathlon champion Vince Louis, and former Ironman and Ironman 70.3 world champion Sebastian Kienle bring star quality with absolutely no guarantees that they will even make the podium. Such is the talent elsewhere. Looking back to St. George and the recent 70.3 World Championship, we have Daniel Beckergaard, Ben Canute, Eric Langstrom, Magnus Ditlev, Sam Appleton, so half of the top 10. On a PTO rankings basis, the men's field isn't quite as strong, 4 of the current top 10, while looking back at the 2020 edition of the race, Matt Hansen and George Goodwin are the highest placed finishers returning, with 5 of that top 10 listing. So it's a strong men's field, mate. We've got Christian Blumenfeld, Ben Canute, Sam Appleton, Matt Hansen, Bart Arnott, Martin Van Riel, George Goodwin, Niels Fromhold, Joe Skipper, Rudy von Berg. There are names, Daniel Beckergaard. There are names, Ben Hoffman, just jumping out at me as I look through it. Adam Hansen's on there as well, so that would be interesting to see him in his awesome bike position. Now, what I did want to mention on this is that we've spoken to a few of the pros over the last couple of weeks, haven't we, you and I? And
Yep.
we know that there are names being announced that may or may not be racing. So it'd
Yeah.
be interesting to see how the actual fields shake out, because a couple of
If you
people have
build it,
spoke.
they will come.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you put their name on the list, they'll show
a
up.
couple of people have said to us, "Oh, I'm on the list. I'm not sure if I'm racing this." But it's interesting to see what Clash Daytona are doing, because they're promoting this as in look who's coming, and maybe they're trying to force people's hands a little bit.
Why do you think Gustav's not there? I would have thought Gustav would come back. If Christian's going, I would have thought Gustav. Do you reckon they rock, paper, scissor and be like, who wants the prize money this time?
Yeah, I think Gustav will have be putting his feet up and having a couple of beers on the beach like he did last time, wasn't it? After Nice, Blumenfeld went training and Gustav had a beer on the beach because Gustav will have just beaten Jan Frodeno.
I love it. Although that's October and this is December, so there's still a whole of November.
It's going to be a long celebration for him. He's going to be pissed for 2 months.
As you'll hear, he might have the Ironman world record. That'd be funny. Look, again, some context. Maybe people are like, what the fuck is Clash? It's Challenge North America, obviously rebranded to Clash. These guys are doing those race track races. Yeah, that's right. And I'm excited to say I really enjoyed the Daytona event. I don't even know what the distance is, to be honest. I've probably fucked up by not having that in there. But again, look at these names. I reckon we could see some more people probably appear on it. Again, I have absolutely nothing to base this on. I'd love to see Lionel come back. We know that he likes this race. We know that he's very good at this distance. But yeah, who knows? We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. And it's broadcast, which is good. Gives us more. I think we were talking last week that it's only really the PTO rankings to worry about. And again, curse of the podcast, there's plenty of things to get excited about to continue this year. And this is obviously one of them. So bring it on.
Game on.
Speaking of Christian Blumenfeld, the current Olympic gold medalist and WTCS world champion, he has confirmed
record holder.
70.3 world record holder, friend of the podcast, the most frequent guest on the podcast. That's probably one of his highest achievements. I reckon he's probably got that out on his email. It's probably Olympic gold medalist, 70.3 world record holder, WTCS world champion, most frequent guest on the MX Endurance podcast. That's
Totally.
I've heard whispers, can't confirm it tonight. Will be racing his Ironman debut at Ironman Cozumel. I got this from Graham Short at Tri 24/7. So Christian Blumenfeld will begin his education at the full distance in November when he takes on the challenge of Ironman Cozumel in Mexico. The Norwegian superstar, who is aforementioned with his titles, has made no secret of his desire to add longer distance titles to his growing collection. Blumenfeld raised eyebrows in the immediate aftermath of that famous Olympic victory in Tokyo by saying he wanted to win Kona this year. Actually, Graham, he raised eyebrows last year on our podcast when he said that he wanted to do the double. Thank you very much. That, of course, is no longer possible, with the earliest possible return to the Big Island now scheduled for October 2022. But 2022 will stage the Ironman World Championship twice, with St. George in Utah hosting the event in May. Big Blue has now confirmed he will begin his preparation for that challenge by taking in his first full-distance event in Cozumel on Sunday, November 21. So hang on, that's 2 weeks before Clash Daytona. So maybe it's Christian who will have his feet up on the beach and might not show up for Clash. Who knows?
We'll see.
Arild Tveiten, the coach of the Norwegian team, said he told Tri 24/7, Ironman is different, but we know that he can handle the heat well. We know he has a body that is suitable to also longer race distances, and I strongly believe he will handle it well. He's so motivated to try and see what he can achieve at the iron distance, and he's working hard to also succeed there. They, the doubters, can say what they want, but if you have the mindset, you will not succeed. Of course, if you have that mindset, you won't. Of course, you can win Kona, but it's not easy. But if you work as good as hard as every single day as you can, then everything is possible. James Bale, he's racing Cozumel.
Yeah, I am excited to see what he does over this distance. It's gonna be really intriguing, isn't it? Because it's easy to doubt whether he can be as adaptable as he appears to be across all distances. But I have a feeling he's going to take to it well. Because I've learnt my lesson from doubting what Christian Blumenfeld can achieve over the last few years. and he's ticked boxes wherever he's gone. So it'll be good to see him race, and I'll be monitoring very, very carefully how he gets on.
I did see, so obviously Tim Hemming on Twitter tweeted about the fact that you have Gustav racing California, Christian racing Cozumel, and I was like, is there a reason why they're not racing the same one together? I would have. They seem so close that I would have assumed that they'd probably go and do either California together or Cozumel together. And I think it was Jordan Blanco who was saying, "Why would they bother sharing the prize money?" I was like, That's pretty good. They're like, "Oh, why don't we just go win a race each and make maximum money?" I was like, "That's pretty funny." But again, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Like, I'm really this is one of those narratives through the year that I've been very. I mean, it's almost a year since we had them on, and they said that they were going to go for the double, and ever since then, I've been excited about it, and knowing that he's doing that sub-7 attempt next year. This is the start of that process. I guess it's going to be the line in the sand that shows us how much work he has to do between now and next year, whenever that event is. So I'm looking
I'm
forward to it.
loving seeing athletes racing Ironman and still being short course athletes at the same time. It's
Same.
reminding me of triathlon I used to watch when I was a kid, or follow when I was a kid.
You know what I forgot to talk about, and I want to just touch on it now, and I can somehow link it in because we're talking about short course athletes. Martin Van Riel's making his debut at middle distance at Clash Daytona. That's what I wanted to talk about, and I think that's exciting too because Martin Van Riel is honestly one of my favorite athletes in the world at the moment, and I'm really excited to see what Martin Van Riel does at that middle distance too. So I just wanted to add that in there because I forgot. But
Powerhouse.
yeah, powerhouse. I really like Martin Van Riel. He's so good for the sport. He's such a character,
Yeah,
and his
he's good,
cycling
isn't
kit is fire.
he?
Next thing, the SG Rail 100. How do you say that? Scrail? The Scrail 100. Jan Frodeno, the athlete turns promoter again. Again, Graham Shaw, try 24/7. MVP this week's episode. We'll have to send him his prize in the mail. The German moved to the idea of putting on an event to his huge social media fan base recently and says 93% were up for it. So now here it is. I don't actually know how to pronounce that. Scrail? Are we going with Scrail or are we going to go the acronyms?
Scrail. Just call it
Scrail
Scrail.
100 is
Yeah.
set October 31st in Girona. What is the race? The clue is kind of in the name, a 100-kilometer adventure race that mixes swim, gravel, and trail. Gravel, of course, is in vogue right now on the back of Alistair Brownlee taken on the Badlands and the British Gravel Championships in the last month. The event, though, gets underway with a 2-kilometer swim on a loop, starting at Cadaqués and finishing back there. After that, we have an 88-kilometer gravel course on the bike from Platja Gran, oh my goodness, Cadaqués to Torres Desvern, Sierra. Escrail 100 then culminates in a 10-kilometer trail run, which ends fittingly at Frodeno's La Comuna Cafe in Girona. It goes down October 31st. Everything kicks off with the swim start at 9 a.m. local time. It costs €200, and the entry does come with a fully loaded goodie bag. You going to sign up for this, mate?
No, I'm not. But it sounds like a really fun race, doesn't it?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, it's not quite long enough in my head to be called an adventure race. It's more of a sort of slightly different triathlon. But it sounds like a good fun race. It's good to see Frodeno doing interesting things in the sport. Finishes at his cafe so everyone can have a coffee. Is it something you would do if you were local and able to leave your country?
I mean, yeah, of course, because it's Frodeno and I'm a self-confessed Frodeno fanboy. No, I would definitely be interested in it. I think it's a good thing. We touch on this with Chris. You'll hear it I don't know if we did it in the bonus episode or the regular one. You'll either hear it or you won't. But he has some interesting thoughts around this event coming up. So we probably do. I think it's a regular episode.
Yeah.
Time is a flat circle. But yeah, again, good to see that he's starting to take these steps into doing other things, and it's good. I mean, we've spoken a lot about the fact that he seems to have achieved everything, and I like that he's sort of just doing things that he's interested in. So,
Yeah,
and
and
again, I'm sure it'll be good.
he's got a huge amount of brand power. He's not just an athlete. He's building a brand around who he is. He's building a brand around lifestyle and getting out in it. And it's good to see that. And I think he's already found success. And if he wanted to, I'm sure Jan Frodeno could do nothing for the rest of his life and not particularly have to worry. But I think he'll find success post sport as well and go on to do many, many more things.
I look forward to his podcast, a la the Forward podcast or whatever the We Do pod, whatever Lance is, the Move, whatever. He's got about 12, doesn't he? On the
Yeah,
topic of
I hope
On the topic of Jan
Frodeno's
Frodeno,
post-career journey doesn't lead to a podcast like
I'm
Lance
talking.
Armstrong's.
How come? It's a good podcast, isn't it?
It is a good podcast, but the reasons for the naming of the podcast, we don't want you.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Going
I'm
down
aware of that. I'm absolutely not making that suggestion, but more
that
I could see him being rocking up to Kona doing. He could. No, I'm not. I'm not going to say that. Speaking of Frodo, we touched on it before. Jan Frodeno is set to race. Oh God, come on, Tim. Jan Frodeno is set to race Gustav Iden in Ironman California later this month. Again, Graham Shaw, as I said, MVP of the episode, Tri 24/7, has all the articles for us this week. If you thought the 2021 season was winding down with no Kona to look forward to this month, think again. Frodeno, speaking on Instagram, confirmed his plan to go to Sacramento, where Eden is part of a stacked field lying in wait for the modern-day GOAT on October 24th. He said, just getting back into training after a few easier weeks and looking forward to going to California. First ever Ironman edition there, and looking forward to getting the year off with a big Ironman. I haven't done one yet this year, obviously. Sounds like a stacked field and really looking forward to going to the start line. California will be the first test, meanwhile, at the full distance for the newly crowned two-time Ironman 70.3 world champion, Gustav Iden. He was imperious in St. George last month as he retained the title. Frodeno had spoken during the Collins Cup about how he was looking to take on the best Norway has to offer in California. Olympic champion Christian Blumfeld, though, will not be lining up, as we just touched about. Another fascinating subplot for the October 24th collision is provided by the latest PTO rankings. Released last month, they saw Eden move above Frodeno to the number one spot in the world, courtesy of his success in St. George. Now, some other worthy names on that list, Jimbo, are Cam Worth, Florian Angett, and Ben Hoffman are also just some of the athletes who are going to be lining up in California. We spoke with Chris McCormack about this, so let's drop our interview with Macca in, and we'll be back afterwards. All right, so we thought we better get somebody else on the podcast to talk about all the stuff they know, and as always, we get Christopher McCormack. Macca, we haven't spoke to you in ages. You've been gallivanting around Europe, commentating Super League, sitting in a hotel room, testing positive to COVID. Mate, how you going?
Good. I've been on the front lines over here in the COVID war. I took some shrapnel and was down for 2 weeks in quarantine in Jersey. But I'm over here fighting the battle, Tim, so you can enjoy those freedoms you're enjoying in Australia.
Not yet. It's been a while.
Do the COVID front lines involve sitting in a penthouse in Jersey drinking loads of wine?
Yeah, that was pretty much. That's what the wars look like these days, Shane. No, it was a shock. It was actually a shock to get it, as I've been fully vaccinated, as you know. And yeah, so I missed the back end of the Super League series, which was tough. I was excited.
Did you get ill, or was it just sort of like, I've got it and I'm sitting here?
I was absolutely shocked when they rang me to say, as I came into the airport in Jersey, they tested. I thought it was a G up. I thought MG it wasn't MG. I thought the guys were just playing a trick because the phone was ringing at 5:30 in the morning, and I just kept hanging it up. And then I went, "What?" And they're like, "You're positive for COVID." And I thought it was I had zero symptoms, nothing at all. I had a little bit of a headache the night before, but I just thought it was from the wine we had the night before that. So I'm joking. It was So it was myself and Anna Godoy, which had a partner in crime, but it was not like the lockdowns we have in Australia. That's for sure. They did a pretty good job. They had an app, and I could go outside for a couple of hours a day and go for a walk. Just couldn't be around people, and it was but it's still quite a difficult thing to do. But yeah.
Well, look, there's so much to catch up with you. We're gonna say that we're doing a bonus episode straight after this. So if you want to hear what Chris has been up to and his thoughts on all those other things, sign up for a podcast membership and get the members only podcast. But Chris, the thing we wanted to talk to you about this week on the show is the news that Gustav Iden is going to be racing Jan Frodeno in Sacramento at Ironman California in a couple of weeks. This is something we've discussed a lot, maybe offline, not so much online. But I thought that was a pretty big announcement. It's something that I've definitely wanted to see myself. So what do you think, mate?
Yeah, well, I knew Gustav was racing. I think the announcement came when Jan suddenly put his hand up and said, I'm racing as well. So it's definitely something we've all been waiting for, but it's also the debut over the distance for Gustav Iden, right? So it's, Christian Blumenfeld's racing a couple of weeks later or a week or two later in Cozumel. So those two athletes have decided to avoid each other, obviously, to grab that Kona spot to qualify for Kona. I don't think, does Christian still have to qualify? Does that invitation from the Olympics still apply now the race has been moved to May, or what race does that apply
Yeah,
for?
it'll apply for May.
Yeah, I think it still applies. Yeah, he's
It
still
applies applies for the May race, not the.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
he
my
doesn't.
understanding.
He doesn't need to qualify for the May one. I mean, if you think about it, like Gustav's racing his first full Ironman at this distance, and there's a lot of pressure on Jan to race Gustav at some point. And if he's going to pick a moment to race him, this is the most sensible moment to pick, isn't it? His first time at the distance, just go and take him on. If there's ever a time that, who knows how Gustav's going to take to Ironman distance, but if he's going to take well to it, if there's ever a time to take him on, it's now.
Yeah, it's sort of a little bit like Floyd Mayweather fighting Canelo Alvarez, right? When he was 21, and that's the only defeat Canelo Alvarez has, Floyd Mayweather. But I tell you what, he wouldn't fight him now. That's
very much how I saw it when I saw this announcement, because something that I think a few weeks ago on the show, I literally said the only thing I want to see is Gustav race Jan Frodeno, and I felt like I needed to add the little addendum at a 70.3, like
at the 70.3 worlds, please.
Exactly, and I think exactly right. Like, I'm still really, really excited to see the race, but it's certainly not. Again, I'm really excited to see how this goes. But if it had been at a 70.3, especially after we saw Jan absolutely bury himself at the Collins Cup, and we heard that he wasn't feeling that good about the distance in the lead up to the event, and just beat Gustav by like literally seconds. That to think of those two both primed at a 70.3 distance, I actually think would be something to watch. I think Gustav would probably push Jan unlike anybody. Like I said this, the Collins Cup, the look on Jan's face when he was racing, I haven't seen that since he was racing Alistair Brownlee at the ITU distance. And I love it. Like, I absolutely love
Gustav
it.
Looked like it. And Gustav on that race looked like he was never got out of third gear.
Yeah.
Which was quite like, Gustav always looks very, very controlled. I thought it's at the 70.3 Worlds, there was a couple of times there where he looked to be pushing himself, but he always seems to be having a good time. And he swims not where Jan. He's quicker on land. So yeah, it'll be great. Look, I think we're all excited about it, but it's not, Jan's at a different stage of his career. They're both in different points. So you get lucky to see opportunities like this. I agree. 70.3 would have been great, but there's not many around anymore. Jan probably felt that, and that's why he dodged the 70.3 Worlds. And I agree. It's a good decision by Jan to pick a fight at this race. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting battle. I'm keen to see the Norwegians full stop compete over this distance, because they talk about it from a science perspective and they seem to believe they can do amazing things over it. But I'm interested to know whether the science correlates to the reality of Ironman racing, because we've got a rich history of racing that we can track now for 45 years of very, very talented athletes coming across the distance, and all of them have said the same thing. I can do this, and I want to run a 2:25 marathon, and I can run, and no one's really doing it. Jan has brought that benchmark down with changes in equipment and changes in training and changes in nutrition. So we are seeing that, but the talk from the Norwegians and what they're going to do is really interesting to me. And they've done it. So it's not like air. They've said they're going to do it over the 70.3, and they have, and they've said that they're going to do it over the Ironman. So,
yeah, I mean, they've now got a 70.3 world champion, a 70.3 time record, and an Olympic gold medalist. So they're certainly racking up the achievements, aren't they?
Yeah, Olympic. Yeah, they're across the board, across all distances. We saw Christian step down from that distance and race pretty well at Super League Malibu, right back in distance. He's the range is
he certainly raced well in that first round of the eliminator, didn't he?
Yeah, you got to
win. Well, do you think Jan losing his number one ranking on the PTO will be an impetus, a stimulus for him to race a bit more and take on some more challenges? Do you think that's something that drives him?
I've been reading a lot of discussion around that. I think for Jan, it does. Jan sees himself as the alpha male and always has. And that's why he's so remarkable. And he has a funny way a different approach to it than other athletes. Other athletes tend to distance themselves from their peers. I think Jan, when he feels threatened, brings them closer, becomes friends, comments on their, we used to see that back in the day with Lionel, until he knows he's got them, and then he sort of pushes them away. And I think he's befriended. He's a nice guy, so don't get me wrong. I'm probably overanalyzing it, but he befriends and brings those enemies closer through his presence and tries to make them like him. I think it gives him a little bit of a superpower. So you're seeing that,
and then defer to him slightly off the back of that. Do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when he feels he's got the mental measure, pushes him away, stays friends, but he's not so engaged in it. So you're seeing that is conversations happening with Jan and Gustav. I think he'd be annoyed that he's not got the spot, and I've seen a lot of talk about it. But like, it's like he hasn't raced. Gustav Iden is the world's number one athlete at the moment. Like, it's, you can't, not what you've done in the past. It's like looking at tennis and saying, come on, Andre Agassi's still Roger Federer is still the best. Well, no, you've got to actually replicate what you've done year on year on year on year. It doesn't just roll because it's a fan choice. So he's had some
Roger Federer will always be the best.
Yeah.
Well, here's another interesting thing I've started to see comments around about is the fact that this California course is going to be incredibly flat and incredibly fast. And I've also seen people starting to hypothesize that what we might actually be seeing is Jan Frodeno trying to ratify that world record and actually take the official Ironman world record, because he's had the Iron distance world record from Roth and then at the tri battle, but he's never had that actual Ironman world record. And I've seen people saying that maybe that's what we're going to see. And I think having somebody like Gustav there to push him, I think we've said this on previous chats where I didn't think that tri battle performance was actually his best. He seemed to have some problems on the run, especially. But if we see him at this fast course, this race actually being pushed by Gustav, wanting to get back that number one spot, wanting to set a record, like we could actually see something really, really incredible here. Because again, how often have we seen Jan truly challenged at the Ironman distance? I can't think of a time really. Like, I think it's actually got
a couple of wars with Frankfurt with Kienle, but wasn't really, like it was always semi-controlled. The early days he struggled, but not recently. I think, look, the way this may roll out, you're going to see Jan with a few minutes up the road on Gustav, and the way Gustav rode that 70.3 Worlds over that course there in St. George, geez, man, he ripped the legs off those athletes.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of natural power and a lot of natural balance in the way he approaches the distance. In a similar ilk to Jan, they ride their numbers, like they're just straight off the clock nowadays, and those numbers just happen to be very, very high through perfecting their training, right? With Jan's case, with Dan Lorang, who does all the work with the Boron Hansgrohe team, so very, very dialed in, and it's the first time I think when you compare a lot of the other athletes that Jan's taking on, they're not as dialed in. Cameron Worth, probably the only one who's dialed those numbers in, just doesn't have that. The depth of talent, and I mean that if Cam's listening, like that's probably the wrong choice of words, but doesn't have that horsepower at the back end to carry that through and is giving up too much on the front end in the swim. When you got Jan, who's flawless across the three disciplines, very, very hard to unleash, especially when he's dialed everything in so much. But I think Gustav, watching that 70.3 Worlds and the people he ripped apart on a course like that, he has some serious back end power on that bike, and it does not seem to wobble his run at all. Now, it's not a clear translation to Ironman racing, but he's never, you think of, take yourself back to the Daytona event like this time last year and that PTO race. Mate, he was smiling, running away from.
He was jogging through the field, wasn't he?
Jogging, mate, and distancing them. So he's either the greatest poker player of all time, or we haven't seen him go to truly into the hurt box yet, and that's going to be interesting. And I applaud Jan. Whilst it's the perfect time to do it, and it's picked over a distance that's unfamiliar with the Norwegians. I do applaud him for stepping up and Ray, because he could have gone somewhere else. He could have gone that Chattanooga race last week, or he could have flipped it and done something early in the year. But why not? And as you said, it's a good time. And if he is going for that record, he's putting a bit of risk out there, because wouldn't it be amazing? He's setting this cost, setting this pace, and then Gustav pips him and takes the record that he wants. Thanks for the setup, and
that'd be something.
Thanks for the Ironman debut with a world record. What a story!
Speaking of Gustav, I wanted to bring up, because we were just talking about the Daytona race and the way that he ran through the field like he was jogging. A lot of people after that, and again, this is just a theme. I know we've all heard it a lot about the fact that the ITU guys just can't ride a bike long distance. Like there's this weakness in this chink in the armor and it comes down to the bike. Do you think Gustav did enough at 70.3 Worlds to maybe silence some of those chats, considering what he did on that bike? Like Magnus Ditlev, who we all know, obviously one of, if not the strongest riders in the sport at the moment. literally was a minute down to Gustav, and Gustav came from behind a lot of those guys and just rode straight through, went to the front and just went kaboom. Do you think he's done enough to maybe start to make people stop questioning their ability to ride a bike?
Well, anyone who knows cycling, and James will love this, it's a completely different style of bike riding and ITU racing. It's like comparing take the current world champion in the Frenchie that just won the worlds, James. What's his name? Alaphilippe, right?
Philippe, yeah.
His time trial isn't as good as Garner and others, right? But he's an amazing bike rider. And it's because he's not focused on doing the work that refines that time trial skill. Sure, you have a natural skill to it, but it doesn't mean you can't ride a bike. And
it's like going out it's like me or you going for a bike ride with Mark Cavendish and being surprised he dropped us on a hill because he's a sprinter. Yes, he's still a fucking good bike rider who would smoke any average person up any hill anywhere.
And the workloads, their rev rate and everything, the way you attack an ITU race or a Super League race compared to the constant power you put out in a time trial over 70.3. And we're not talking about short time trials. We're talking about long time trials. So these age group athletes, or sometimes the professional athletes, he can't ride a bike. It's such a broad, stupid statement to make. Because what you're saying is, okay, you can't sit in one spot for 2 hours and push 330 watts, right? But mate, he can, when you see him rip apart the legs off people in ITU races, that's an easy craft to refine and he'll catch up. He's a good bike rider. It's not like you got a guy who can't ride a bike. So yes, I think Gustav silenced those athletes because they're starting to do the work. You're seeing Vincent Louis now going into the wind tunnels and starting to look at the transition across. So they're refining their training to suit the racing they're doing. And once they get that training down and that work done, they're going to show that the engine is there to rip their legs off. And that's exactly what we're seeing happening.
Yeah, I think that opinion that ITU guys can't, or women and men can't come over to the long course and ride a bike like that comes off the back of most age groupers racing 70.3 or Ironman and not understanding quite how hard ITU bike riding is and kind of thinking it's easy and you sit in a pack and then you have a quick run at the end. Not understanding how much craft and power goes into riding a bike like that with all those surges and all that, responding to attacks and trying to get off the front, etc.
Exactly.
They'll
come. A whole bunch of them are going to come. The Norwegians are setting the way, but look for Martin Van Riel, who's making a debut at the end of the year in that Clash Daytona event.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's doing the 70.3.
Wow.
Vince is coming across. Henry Schumann's talking about coming across now. Give them some time. Even the great Jan Frodeno took some time to transition. We give them time to, and they're sitting in both camps. So it's a tweak of their training. The Norwegians are outliers, looking at all distances from Super League to Ironman. They're absolute outliers. But once you see that transition happen, and that decision to go long as hope, that the talent's there and the engine's there to do the damage.
Well, we also saw Casper Stornes make his Ironman distance or his Ironman debut a few weeks ago. What race was it? I'm forgetting it. Was it at, where was it? Was it Copenhagen? No,
Copenhagen, I think. Yeah.
No, it wasn't Copenhagen because Copenhagen's in August. I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
He did.
And he DNF'd. He said he lost his nutrition on the bike.
Yeah.
And he walked away from that and literally said, if it wasn't for that, I would have won that race. And again, it's I understand it's easy to say that, but what we can look at is what he's then gone and done afterwards, where he went to that Nice 70.3 race a few weeks ago. And he ran a 106 after a 106 after one of the toughest bike courses in 70.3. And again, same thing, just made it look relatively easy. I saw a video with him post-race. He wasn't even buggered. He seemed as though it was like a pretty easy run for him. And that's what I mean. I think that was probably a bit of a test for them because we know that they're quite a
group.
So
they are.
Casper's gone out first and he's like, let's see what this is like. Let's work some things out. Okay, this didn't work. This didn't. So while Gustav and Christian haven't raced the distance yet, they've still got the learnings from what Casper went and tried to do. And they're going to be able to apply that when they approach it. Like, I am really curious to see how Gustav goes at debut against Jan Frodeno and knowing that there is this expectation from people like ourselves to see what happens. And I didn't even think about what you just said, Chris, where, Jan could go push this pace and Gustav could just sit behind him all day and then just pip him at the line. And suddenly he's the 70.3 world champion, the Ironman world record holder. That would be quite a way to make a debut. And
7th at the games. Like, dude, exactly. That's what we want to see too. It's not. I would love to see something like we all want to see the great Jan Frodeno pressure, because we don't know how many more years we're going to get to see him race, right? So, and you're definitely seeing a momentum shift in discussions around. There's a lot more momentum and discussions around the Norwegians.
Yeah.
2 years ago, you half had to sell them to the world, right? We were talking on this podcast about, I'm telling you, these Norwegians are good. I'm telling you, they're really, really fast. And we're like, but Jan Frodeno, I'll kill him. And Patrick Lang will applaud him. Now people are like, wow, like they're doing it.
Knowing Jan as you do, what's his mindset, do you think, when it comes to if let's say hypothetically Gustav beats him and then he starts to lose races and he starts to drop down the rankings? Is he like an Eddie Merckx who sits around for too long and just keeps going for that 5 years too long and slides down to 20th and just keeps on racing? Or does he just go, all right, my time is over and retire, do you think?
I think Jan will find it difficult to retire, because there's a lot of and he's in no need to, because he's in such amazing athletic form for a 40-year-old. He's still the standard. So we're talking about it's always, I always find it odd, and if Jan's listening, I'm not in any way inferring this, but you always feel that everyone else is trying to retire you before you're ready, right? And so it's always rude for us to talk about retirement to someone who is dominating the sport, right? Yeah. It's just we put an age on him and we think, okay, he must be getting near the end, but he's defying the norm through his professionalism, through his diets, through his preparation, and there is no need for Jan Frodeno to retire. But what you can't stop as an athlete is the next wave. It comes no matter what, and their disrespect, not disrespect. Well, they have no fear of you, right? They're flamboyant, spontaneous, racing, and their need for them to show to themselves that it's their time. So they start to really eat into that myth that you've created, and that can disrupt you mentally. I think for Jan, I hope he doesn't hang on too long. I see him being around for a few more years yet. I still think he thinks he can, and I think next year will be a big one for him if he was to win both the World Championships, which is not a foregone conclusion. It would be a nice way to step aside. I just think he'll find it difficult to step aside and you're starting to see him do different things. He's got that event that he's doing in a few months' time where he's bringing people down to do a cross-country.
It's the week after this California Ironman. It's literally the next weekend. That's what made me go, he's not going to race it, because he's got this other thing.
You see him doing other things. He put on the tri battle. He's reached out a few times on certain things with us. It's like, he's trying to find what that post life looks like. He's nowhere near that, but he's doing it cleverly in the sense that he realizes the physical flame can't last forever, but the brand and Jan Frodeno Inc. can. And what he does with that will be key.
Not talking specifically about Jan, but like, what is you're a bit the special case because you've made a huge amount of impact after retirement, and you've kind of, gone in lots of different directions and created lots of different entities within the sport. But what is there for an Ironman world champion, male or female, post retirement? Is it fairly easy to carve a little niche somewhere and do something, or do you have to work hard at that, do you think?
Nothing's easy. I think it's the same for anybody transitioning from any, whether you lose your job here and you've got to transition to something else, right? The one thing I've always said about being an athlete that makes it very, very difficult is there are not many occupations in the world where you can be the best at something one year and the following year you not only can you not be the best at it, but you can't do it anymore. You can do it, but for a job, you can't do it. And sport is that. So that's why the drop off, the transition for sports people is very, very hard, because, in other occupations, you may lose your job, but you still learn skills that could potentially take you elsewhere. But it's very rare. You can be at the top of something and then overnight it's muffed out. That no longer can exist for you. So transitioning is difficult. A lot of athletes, I always think their ass is going to age like wine, and they don't really, put things in place to transition out or start thinking, okay, what's this going to look like? They're so narcissistic and self-obsessed with the goal in front of them, which is what's made them great, that suddenly retirement hits them by surprise. And as you said with Eddie Merckx, they hang around for too long trying to work out what they're going to do, and they damage everything. So I was always thinking, well into my career, because I guess that came from my father, who didn't really accept my career in the early years, that I needed to be thinking of what life looked like, because life goes for a long time, sport goes for a short period of that life. But it's not, there's no guarantee. Just because you have a title, you need to either go after and make things or create things. For me, I just looked at, most athletes end up coaching or, moving in that realm because they want to stay around the sport, because the sport is their identity. I tried to always separate the sport and my identity as two different things. Whilst people knew me from triathlon, my private life was very private, and my friends were very different to what I did in sport, and my network was very different from what I did in sport. But when you sort of intertwine that, it can be tough. But yeah, look, my success was just, I always did things that I copied the same pattern my whole life. I wanted to be a triathlete when my dad wanted to be a banker, and I just did it, right? And it's like, I'm doing this. And so I've always had this courage, I guess, to try and work out what I want to do and chase it. And that can be a tragedy or a winner. And in a lot of cases, there's been some tragedies, but yeah, I did that post-career as well. And we got Super League and these sort of things that came off the back of applying that same mindset to goals, even though they seem lofty. Where a lot of athletes retire, they get like crabs. I always say, I see a lot of my peers now, a lot of the swimmers, and they retire and then they sort of lock everything they have and they try and protect it, as opposed to they lose that mindset of an athlete where you throw it all on the line again the following week. And I guess it's that startup mindset where you just keep having a go, and they start to listen to the naysayers. And I remember when we did Super League and we launched, everyone laughed. Why would you do that? It's a dumb idea. No one's going to care. Stupid. How are you going to make? Well, the same thing used to happen when I did triathlon. We're going to do Ironman. That's a dumb idea. Stupid. You're going to get blown to pieces. If you listen to the naysayers, you're gone. And that's sort of what sometimes I find with athletes as they get older and they start to get protective, and they start thinking that they believe the myth about themselves because there's all this great media being written about them for the last few years of their career. They try and protect it. And they're too scared to take a step in case they fail, because they may be judged and they may be. And, I think Jan has the courage to push envelopes. He does it in a box a little bit, but he's still testing himself, which is very, very noble. I think he'll be quite successful in his transition.
The last thing I want to sort of touch on about this is we said earlier is the fact that they've now confirmed the World Championships will be held in St. George in May rather than Kona in February. It's the first time we've seen this race held outside of Kona. And something that I know we've spoken a lot about, Chris, is the fact that Kona is very much favourable to a certain sort of athlete. And this might be the first time where that isn't the case. What do you see the change meaning to the pro race in May? Firstly, do you think we're going to have the same sort of stacked field that we would normally have in Kona, considering the next race is only, 4 or 5 months afterwards? And are we going to see the same players?
Yeah, I think you'll get everyone going. I see it as it's still a world championship while we push back from the question mark around, it wasn't Kona. That'll be forgotten in a few years' time. You'll still be able to push that. It'll be a completely different race, completely different expectations, and completely different players. I think we've talked about athletes like Joe Skipper. I think this race is set up for him. I think had this happened this year, we could be talking about someone like Joe Skipper as the world champion. He has been absolutely carving people, ripping people apart, mate. And he did it from Ironman New Zealand 2 years ago. I saw him tear that course to pieces. His race last week, he was just in another time zone. He seems to have dialed everything in. And that Kona myth, that Kona heat, that Kona course that can take the sail out of some people, that suits others, some people over others, that's removed with a race like St. George. It's a tough course. There's a bit of altitude there. There's a dry heat. There's no humidity. Mate, I think you may see a completely different style of race, and you may see potentially different winners. But from a pro perspective, I see everyone going. It'll be a tragedy that you only hold the title for 6 months, but you still held the title. You'll still be pushing that as a champion. And wouldn't it be interesting? I think someone like Jan's going to try and chase that double, and try and go and win St. George. And so suddenly you got 5 world titles, and you'll always be able to defend that position. If anyone, you won in St. George, but I won it again in Kona. And I won 2 world titles that year. I think you'll see everyone go.
Lucy Charles Barkley and Joe Skipper for the titles then, really?
Mate, it's funny. So I think I do think that they're the two athletes I think will be very, very tough to beat. I think the Norwegians are going to come in hot, very, very hot indeed. But man, I can't put a negative in any part of Joe Skipper's racing in the last 2 years, mate. Like his bike is remarkable. His run consistency is off charts. He is running fast off very, very big bikes, and he's doing it consistent. There was a couple of the old Joe Skipper do it one Ironman. You see these flashes of brilliance, but he's really, really nailed the consistency over the racing. He's the standard of Ironman. He's been the standout Ironman performer for me in the last 2 years.
Yeah, we were chatting with Joe the other day, and I said that to him. I said, I feel like he's sort of made the transition the last 2 years from being one of those like very good middle tier athletes to being one of those like top contenders now. Like he's an athlete now that if you see him on a start list, it's like, yeah, this is Joe's going to win this sort of thing. Like he's moved to that level, and I agree. I genuinely think we're probably going to see Joe. Like it's a course built for Joe Skipper. Like it really is, and I think that's what I love about this is that it is suddenly it's an unknown quantity. We don't know what a world championship is like not in those Kona conditions, because there's going to be athletes who just aren't able to perform in Kona, who suddenly that's not going to be a factor, and that excites me so much. The potential, it's going to be great. I mean, after what we saw Lucy do at that St. George race, which is I cannot. We're going to talk about this in our bonus episode, but that run is one of the most impressive things I've seen ever.
Killed it.
Ever.
Like the whole race.
It's true. Off the front, absolutely ridiculous. But like, we'll talk about it later. Chris, thank you so much for coming on.
We're talking about the bonus in the bonus episode, but because we're going to talk about the women's race.
Oh, mate, I've got so much to talk about. So we'll say that for the bonus. If you guys want to hear it, there's a perfect plug. Head to mxendurance.com/podcast. You can find out exactly what we're talking about. Chris will be talking straight after this, but guys, we'll be back with the regular episode right now.
Fuck, I love Gustav, man. What a dude. What a dude. Get after it, mate. Get after it. Because, God, I sounded Devonshire then, didn't I? Get after it, B. He needs to... I love seeing, he's just not afraid to step up and take on the GOAT. Because at some point, you're only the best until you're not. And Gustav Iden has got, I think, what it takes to do some damage. So get after it, Gustav.
What's up next, Jimbo?
Welcome to the down low on the PTO. Mate, we've got a bit of a theme this week. We've been talking about prize money in the Super League, and we were talking about prize money at Paris-Roubaix in professional cycling. And I noticed an article in 220 Triathlon magazine by a close friend of the podcast. He's been given a close friend of the podcast title. You'll notice
he's earned it.
Did Tim Hemming, regular guest, regular contributor, and regular asker of favors. So. A sublime performance in the Ironman 70.3 World Championships has taken British superstar Lucy Charles-Barclay above Switzerland's Daniela Ryf for the first time, but the 28-year-old won't be the only one to benefit from the Professional Triathletes Organisation's $2 million a year end rankings. So we thought we'd talk about the additional prize money the PTO is giving out and what on the women's side will be earned by those people in the rankings. Lucy Charles-Barclay posting the fastest time, swim, bike and run splits to win the Ironman 70.3 World Championship at Utah staked her claim to be the best non-drafting female triathlete in the world right now. And that's backed up by she's on course to end the year as PTO number one and scoop an additional $100,000 to add to the $60,000 appearance fee for the PTO's flagship Collins Cup in Slovakia. So that's a fair chunk of change, isn't it, Mr. Ford? But we also see Emma Pallant-Brown, number 6, scooping $50,000. Kat Matthews, number 9, $35,000. Holly Lawrence, number 12, $20,000. Fenella Langridge, number 9, $11,000.
19. We'll get emails.
19,
number 19.
Sorry, number 19. All are ranked inside the top 20 and set to take a share of the $2 million that's split between the top 100 male and female professionals racing events further than the Olympic distance. Now, I just wanted to bring this to the attention because when the PTO was formed, all these numbers were kind of abstract. They were things that were going to happen in the future. We're getting to that time of year now where we're really starting to see these payouts are going to be made. And these professionals within our sport that make our sport so entertaining and make it what it is are going to start seeing the fruits of an organization like the PTO and the fruits of their labor come out in these payments. And it's really good to see.
It is. I think we touched on it with Chris, but and again, I'm going to go straight back to the men's race, even though this article is about the women. But I think about this race in California coming up with Gustav racing yarn, and there is more than just the race on the line. There is the PTO rankings. There is that $100,000 bonus on the line. Like there's jeopardy. We speak a lot about jeopardy. The first time we mentioned it with that Super League in the conversation, but that's what these rankings have done. And I mean, again, you look at somebody like Daniela Reeve. Does that motivate her to come back and try to do some more races later this year? Are we going to see athletes who maybe aren't happy with their ranking, who would plan to go, I'm going to back it off a year? Like, what's this stuff going to start to do? And I'm quite curious to see how that all unfolds. I know there's been a lot of conversation around the rankings. I know that even before, I think we put up the episode last week, and I think I put up the photo of Jan, and people were going at me, and I was like, settle down, mate. Like, maybe just listen to the episode before you start attacking us.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I really like this. I'm still not sure about the whole where's the revenue, like where's the sustainability of the revenue model. I don't think the Collins Cup would have generated that much revenue to cover this, and at some point it's going to have to. Again, not a criticism. I think what they're doing is fantastic, and the fact that these athletes are getting this money is great because it does create that incentive for them to perform. The only thing I did notice about the rankings, and again, I might be completely off the mark, and PTO guys, feel free to reach out, is I thought based on the rules we read out last week was around, or 2 weeks ago, about races need to have a minimum prize purse to be eligible for points. But the Collins Cup, I don't think had prize money, but it was still eligible for points. So I'm not sure. That's the only one that I'm not. That's the only thing I can't. Yeah, make sense of.
Probably semantics there, isn't it? Because didn't have.
I'm a lawyer. Semantics are important to me.
Didn't have prize money based on finishing position, but it had prize money based. It just had a prize purse.
But it was appearance fees. Like, you could be right. It could be. It could be prize purse. That's what it could. Yeah, you're right. That could be it. But I just did see that, and I thought that's a slightly odd one. But again, I don't dislike it. I understand there's a lot of athletes who are not so happy with how it's working. But if you're one of the top ones, I don't think you'd be complaining.
These rankings do add jeopardy. They do add an extra level of interest because there's a huge amount of money on the line for finishing a place above the person that you're racing. Like you're using the men's race in California as an example, Gustav and Jan Frodeno. It's not just racing for the pride of can Gustav beat Jan Frodeno. It's racing for that world number one ranking and racing for a huge chunk of change off the back of it. So we'll start to see that across all races, hopefully, because people will start picking battles where they can improve their ranking and improve their prize pot at the end of the year.
Well, I want you to make a prediction. I want you to go out on a limb, and I know how much you enjoy doing this, James Bale. Who is going to be the number one male and number one female at the end of the year? Who is going to finish this season number one?
Oh, it's really hard on the women's side, mate. It's going to be Lucy Charles-Barkley on the women's side.
I agree.
Without question. And, fuck me. All right. Okay. Because if I say what I want to say on the men's side, then I'm nailing my colours to the mast of an untested 70.3 world champion, 2 times winning his first. Yeah, fuck it. He's a 70.3. He's a 2-time 70.3 world champion, but in dominant fashion. Gustav's going to beat Jan Frodeno. Is going to be world number one at the end of the year.
Yeah, but let's also not forget, James, that it doesn't necessarily have to be about who wins. Like if these two guys, say Jan does beat Gustav, but Gustav is literally seconds behind, but they're behind the AIT, it might not matter. Like it's not as simple as who finishes first wins. It could be a case that they finish so close together that their points are almost identical, and even though Jan beats him, he doesn't earn enough points to overtake Gustav. That's right. The thing about it.
Let me revise what I just said then. Gustav's going to batter him. He's going to batter him. And he's going to beat the AIT by fucking loads, and he's going to take all the points, and he's going to solidify his position at world number one. Come at me, internet.
You're going to. I love it. You're probably not surprised. I'm going to say Jan. I think, again, based on what Chris said, I think this is the sort of thing that maybe would bother Jan a little bit because he is the alpha in our sport. And I hope it motivates him. I really am more excited about California. Like this California race, the more layers you apply to it, the more exciting it gets. And again, we've spoken about how impressive Lucy Charles has been. Spoiler alert, she's probably going to be right up there for our female triathlete of the year this year. Her and Flora will battle it out, I reckon. The rewards for her incredible year. Like I think she does. I don't think anybody could look at what she's done and go, she doesn't deserve that bonus. So it's good to see it. And the other athletes who we've seen a lot racing this year, Kat Matthews, Sky Monch, those people who have raced and raced well this year are being rewarded for it. So I like that about it.
Yeah, and athletes are going to be able to make a living in our sport. Not that they couldn't before, because it was all about fishing for sponsorship and endorsements and partners. And you've got this sort of
Athletic greens.
athletic dreams. You've got this top tier of professionals in our sport now that will have that slight bit of pressure taken off them. Not in an athletic sense, but if they're performing fiscally, they are going to be looked after to a point. And then any bonuses, sponsors, endorsements that come in on top of that can make their life a lot more comfortable.
James Bell, you might not know this about us, but we actually work in the athlete sponsorship space in our day job.
I forget about that sort of thing.
I'm curious if, and again, I understand it might not be the case. Athletes always they have a finite window to capitalize on their ability to earn an income. But do you think if there's something is more financial security for a lot of these pros, what do you think that's going to do to, like, we're seeing a dialogue with a lot of athletes are choosing performance over price. Like, they want to work with the best products to make them go as fast as possible. Yeah, we saw a lot with the Nike shoes. A lot less athletes are racing in other brands of shoes, even if they'd be paid for it. Do you think we're going to start to see potentially more athletes making more choices based on performance rather than money as a result of this?
Yeah, well, I think the implications of having a sport that pays enough money for an athlete to exist as a pro athlete and earn enough prize money, earn enough from the rankings to be like, right, that's my life sorted. I earn enough from my sport to exist. That's going to make the sponsorship, endorsement, and partnership model of our sport very, very different to how it is now. Because now you've got a load of athletes out there who are like, fucking hell, anybody sponsor me, please. Come on.
You pay them 10, I'll take 7. I'll take 6. I'll take 3. I'll do it for free.
Yeah. And the next thing you know, you've got product only deals being offered, and pro athletes are worth far more than a product only.
Far more than that, yeah.
And so I think it's going to put a rocket up the sponsors and endorsers and partners, because they are going to go, oh, okay, maybe I can't just get any athlete I want. And the top tier athletes are earning enough money to use whatever kit they want to make them go as fast as possible. I want my kit to be the kit they are choosing, not the whatever bike they just buy because they've got enough money or they already have, or whatever wetsuit they buy, because I need
look at Ventum.
I need age groupers in the sport to look at the wetsuit that, I don't know, one of the fastest swimmers in the sport are wearing and think, well, he's that fast or she's that fast because of the suit they're wearing. And and I think the benefits of the PTO paying out like this and prize money increasing is far reaching beyond the immediate benefits of the improvement in an athlete's standard of living, because you're going to see sponsors having to work harder for those relationships.
Yeah, it's going to shift the power a little bit, which again, for us in our position, is not a bad thing. I'm quite okay with that. James Bale, thank you for that. I enjoyed it. Always good chat, talk about PTO stuff. But if you like to hear us talk about PTO stuff, you like to hear us talk about all sorts of stuff. And in fact, you want to hear us talk about even more stuff, head to mxendurance.com/podcast, where you can sign up for one of our podcast memberships. As little as $3.40 a month if you sign up for one of the annual plans. $49 for a year gets you access to a whole suite of benefits, including bonus monthly member exclusive podcasts like the one we recorded with Chris that's came out today. Partner discounts. We're about to announce another big partner. We've got more in the works. Access to the community. You can contribute to the show, get your questions, whatever you like. We're going to, as I said, eventually make these recordings live for our members, so you'll be able to participate along. Supports the show, helps us allocate resources for the podcast, how we pay for things like webcams and fancy microphones. So thank you for everybody who has signed up and supported the podcast. It's how we're going to continue to grow the podcast, make it even better. So if you want to support us and keep us doing this show that you seem to enjoy.
Have I got a fancy microphone? Is this a fancy microphone?
Very. Yours is the fanciest. Head to mxendurance.com/podcast. As I said at the start, we also have the race team applications happening at the moment. So don't want to miss out on the best connected endurance sports community in the world. If you want to find out about that and other stuff, James, where do you go?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at T414 on Instagram. Please jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app. Super easy and really helps us out. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow the podcast. If you got any comments, criticisms, or anything you want to say, really, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
I'm going to lean into the camera for this one as well, because guys, if you aren't following James Bale on Instagram, you're missing out, because he is the king of content. Do yourself a favor. Head to James Bale's Instagram because you're gonna enjoy it.
I posted a picture of some chilies I grew the other day.
I noticed. I think most of the time you post something now, I just go content king. I just always put like king or this is content or something like this on your post.
I don't know how to make content. I don't even care what content is. I post pictures of stuff I like every now and again.
Twitter's also good. Twitter's a lot of fun. Guys, thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. As James said, get in touch. Until next week, see you later.
Cheerio.